We are facing unprecedented upheaval. Just a few challenges we're facing are 40-year high inflation, and regardless what the political class would say, we're already in a recession. The real issue becomes how severe does it become? Much of the world is pressured by high energy prices that don't appear to have a quick or easy solution. Truly, some of the challenges we're facing have global reach, and the shocks to the system will ripple throughout the world. But as a few of you have asked, how do we respond? And that truly is a better focus for you and I. First, we have to recognize every challenge has a spiritual aspect. In fact, I'm firmly convinced the greater the battle we face, the more important the spiritual aspect of it is. And for us to not recognize that puts us at a disadvantage. So first off, how do we reflect? How do we focus spiritually? Well, Psalms 112 has these amazing promises for those who truly trust in the Lord. Everything from that their children will be respected and influential to verse 7 that says that they won't fear bad news because their heart is steady. Or, as the Passion Translation says, because their heart is firm in steadiness, trust in the Lord. So we need to recognize that as when everybody else is afraid, we should be the ones, because of our focus on the Lord, that aren't afraid of the issues. And as we'll see, I'm firmly convinced also that we, in those challenges, look to God for Him to make something good out of it. Many of you have heard me say this before. Never let a good crisis go to waste. So in a moment, we'll look at some practical response. But on the spiritual side, how do we apply our faith? And so Exodus is a great application for you and I in this situation. Now, not because God was about to move His people out, but what do we see happening? So in Exodus, God is at work, and there are shocks to the system. In this case, there are plagues. And what happens in chapter 8 is important to you and I. It's a focal point for us to apply our faith. And in chapter 8, there's been 3 plagues already, and then God says something powerful. And He says, from this point forward, I will make a difference between my people and everyone else. Now, from that point forward, what happened? God was still at work. The plague still happened, but it didn't touch God's people. Literally, there was no effect. Now, we have to recognize, though, they could see what was happening just outside their property line, so to speak. They could have chosen to look at what they saw and be fearful, be impacted by it, even though it wasn't touching them. So my challenge to you, now you can't just say, oh, well, okay, great. We have to get a deep revelation of that. So my encouragement to you is to study that passage and just let the Holy Spirit speak to you about God making a difference between His people and everyone else. But then we go on in this story. And when God does move His people out of Egypt, beginning them on that journey to the Promised Land, something amazing happens. See, they went out with vitality. It says none were feeble. And as you may know, they took the wealth of Egypt with them. They took the blessings with them. So there was a blessing in it, but they received that by responding to the Lord's direction. It didn't just fall in their lap. They had to respond to the Lord's direction. Now, in the next part, we will look at some practical ways to approach this. And I'm going to share a way to look at how different markets and investments work. I'm not giving any investment advice, but I want to open your eyes to recognize how the cycles work so that you can be more in tune to hear what the Holy Spirit would say. So ultimately, before we do anything else, we need to apply our faith. And just a couple of suggestions are to apply our faith that God would give us that ability to be separate, to be distinct is truly what He was saying. But also, as we focus on Him, that He would initiate, He would show us, He would lead us into that response that would be a blessing, that would be transformational, and that we wouldn't let a good crisis go to waste.